What's up, people? I'm Shaggy the Opinionated Hippie, continuing my deep dive into all things Neil Young. Today I'm going to rant and rave about, relatively, but yes, Bluenote Cafe, a live album he released in 2015, part of his Archives performance series, and it's from a 2-disc live document, well over 2 hours. These discs are packed. From 1987-88 with his touring with the Bluenotes, hence the Bluenote Cafe. Interesting track listing, 23 songs total. Most of them are recent 80s tracks, things that are already seeped in the blues. Neil is not being like, hey, wonder what Cortez sounds like all bluesed up, or I wonder what Word sounds like with blues. It's stuff that's kind of already blues. Bunch of unreleased stuff, coupled older tracks that you're like, oh, an older track. What do we get? Older tracks. On the Way Home, Buffalo Springfield track, which is pretty awesome. Epic Tonight's the Night, which I guess is kind of epic. An unreleased Crime in the City, unreleased Ordinary People, stuff that would eventually get released in the decades to come. Some old stuff from the 70s that he had played that he had yet to release, that he had played, I think, almost all acoustically, or I think acoustic versions that now he's given the big band performance with. Interesting track list. But it is the same kind of blues 5-piece horn section that he did on This Note's for You, an album I'm not a fan of. However, for some reason, it just works better live, has a different vibe. It feels more relaxed. People get a solo more. The songs are stretched out. Doesn't quite feel like musical tourism as much. It seems more just like a celebration of the blues, just happens to be live. And the fact that he's not doing all these old tunes and reworking them almost like helps that. Like, I'm just here. I'm Neil doing the blues now. The album, mainly because it followed so many different, like this left turn, now a U-turn, now a right turn, now a loop-de-loop. The album just felt like he's putting on another hat and trying on another costume. It just doesn't feel that way in these live performances. And it's really interesting. I do think at 2+ hours, there are parts where it's just like, all right, this isn't Neil's greatest subgenre to deal with. His voice doesn't particularly work. I don't think his guitar playing is at home in this venue, in this sort of musical milieu. But it's an interesting listen. And if you don't like This Note's for You, give this a shot. Even the songs that are on that album, like early on, we have the 3rd and 4th song or This Note's for You, followed by 10 Men Working. The order's flipped as on the album. On the album, it's 10 Men Working into This Note's for You. This Note's for You is longer. It's got these little instrumental breaks. It's got an intensity to it that I think feels forced on the album, but feels perfect as the 3rd song of this quote-unquote show. I'll explain how the songs are picked in a second. And then 10 Men Working following that. If you're familiar with the album, you know 10 Men Working is a little more relaxed. It's stretched out. People get a chance to solo. It has kind of a calmer vibe. Going from This Note's for You and that intensity, especially live, and you're like, oh yeah, there's some extra guitar playing in here, a little bit of extra energy. Then you go into 10 Men Working, you're like, all right, yeah, I'm ready for this. This works. Just a lot of little choices like that really make this work. The song selection, and Neil does this a lot, and I think it's absolutely fascinating. It's in the order of performance. So the earliest songs are from November 87, and then every song after that is either also from November 87 or later. So the last songs are from August 88. And so it's just interesting. He's compiled this sort of track list that doesn't look too much like the set list jumped around a lot, but maybe kind of looks like the set list from here, from like a regular tour, though different songs were dropped and added. Crazy Horse was part of this early on the first 2 tracks, and we get a different rhythm section after that. So there's some interesting things like that happen. Right? Yes. And then, but as we go on, we get later in the tour, and he apparently gets more comfortable. So by the time we get to the last song, it's a 20-minute Tonight's the Night that probably only needs to be 10 minutes long, but they have a really good time jamming it out. Opens up with a song called Welcome to the Big Room, which apparently is just simply for these shows. It's big, it's huge, it's sleazy in a horn blues way. It's got swag, it's got a nice pace to it. Neil's solo is nice and squiggly. We're getting a little more of an identifiable sort of Neil attitude in the guitar. Great opening number. Welcome to the big room. It feels welcoming. Don't Take Your Love Away From Me, an unreleased track. Reminds me of The Thrill Is Gone, little B.B. King style slow burn in action. Really nice horns, nice and jammed out. It's like a 9.5-minute song. We get it nice and jammed out before even the first vocals, which are about 1.5 minutes in. Neil's guitar is just squealing. It's a pretty straightforward song, but we get these awesome horns. We get some nice sax solos, some nice Neil solos. It's just the first 2 songs are close to 17 minutes long. And it's a good welcome in. It's like nobody's in a hurry. We're just going to have a good time. Let's hear some blues. Then we get This Note's For You, which it's a little bit funkier. It's better developed than the album version. I just feel like it's got a little more swag to it. 10 Men Working. Great. The order is great. We're settling in. We're in the show. Absolutely awesome. At this point, we kind of hit, okay, your interest in this kind of goes up and down depending on how much you like rhythm and blues and how much you actually like Neil's contribution to the genre. Because I think this is maybe a little of the weakest patch in here with another patch towards the end. But it's kind of the same stuff and the energy's still good. It's just maybe the songwriting isn't as strong. Life in the City. A song I don't really like on the album. I think it works much better in the context of the show. The aggressive energy works really well here. 5 songs in. Hello, Lonely Woman. Cheery, fun 60s blues pop. I believe this is on the very first disc of Archives 1. Neil originally co-wrote it with someone else, someone named Smith, I think, back in 1965. There's a version on Archives 1. But I believe other than the Archives 1 version, this is the only version we have of this. Soul of a Woman, not my favorite song. This, I think, is probably the most generic thing on here. Okay, live. Married Man, another one that kind of, with Soul of a Woman, kind of generic big blues. Okay performances. Bad News Comes to Town, which was on Archives 2. I believe it was on the Old Homestead release. Really nice version of this. Stretched out at 8 minutes. Some great solos. Yeah, this is good, even though it's to this audience an unreleased track, because Archives 2 had not been dropped yet, and none of them were probably had those, maybe they had those boots, I don't know. But it's a nice song. Ain't It the Truth? This was released eventually on Lucky 13, that compilation album, but it was first released on here. This is your standard sort of blues type song. It's got that 10 Men Working, chain gang backing vocal type thing, that kind of style, that group response. Ain't It the Truth was that one. One Thing Is Next, slow ballady blues. The closing number on This Notes. Some really nice, great soloing from guitar and horns. It works here. I think it's a better towards the end of this part of the end of disc 1 than it is closing out that album, though I do think it kind of works there. And then Twilight, which I think is just a good song. A little more intense live. I still feel like it's a subpar Your Latest Trick from Dire Straits, but it's still a good song. It's a good, interesting disc 1. Some pretty good stuff on there. I think it starts off stronger, kind of a weak middle from Hello, maybe Life in the City, Hello, Lonely Woman, Soul of a Woman, Married Man. Maybe you can cut a couple of those songs and shorten the disc a little, but starts really strong, ends really strong. Disc 2 has just some fascinating stuff on here. Opening song is I'm Going, which I believe is only on here. Big energy, blues number, just really good. Kicks off the CD well. Nice big number. Then we get Ordinary People, which would not be dropped until much later on. I cannot think of what album Ordinary People is on. But why can I not think of... Well, Chrome Dreams 2, right? Ordinary People's on Chrome Dreams 2, right? Chrome Dreams 2. Yeah, is that what it's called? Pretty much the same version that we would get on Chrome Dreams, except it's the same musical vibe, full horn section, so it's absolutely beautiful. But the verses are in a different order, and we have, I think, one new verse. So maybe don't have any new. Yeah, there are some different lyrics. It's some different lyrics, but kind of the same verses. But the verses are verse 7 is now the first verse. Verse 2 is the second verse. 3 is 3. 4 is 4. Verse 8 is now 5. Verse 6 is 6. Verse 1 is now 7. Verse 5 is now 8. And 9 is 9. Definitely not as much instrumental stuff going on between the verses, though some of the verses between them we have little guitar breaks. Clocks in at only 12 and a half, 13 minutes. So it's about 5 minutes shorter. But it's amazing. It's awesome to have him drop this like 13-minute song live with all of these verses. Absolutely fantastic. Pretty fun listen. Really neat. And then that's followed by Crime in the City, which more electric, definitely has a heavier electric energy. Energy's good. This one has whole new lyrics also. We get a whole new set of lyrics about a judge. The first and second ones are different. Third verse is now the third verse. Fourth is 5. I think 6 is on there. So we got some different verses here, but it's heavier, a little more guitar energy. Fantastic. Ordinary People, Crime in the City. 20 minutes in early on disc 2. Excellent, excellent lesson. Almost makes this whole thing worth it. Then we get Crime of the Heart. Really nice opening guitar on here. Some nice drum. Mid-tempo blues with a nice bounce to it. These almost like skipping like blues chords that just give it this really good energy. The horns come in and it has a very sort of da-na-na-na blues start and stop thing at some point. That kind of works. I don't never hear that da-na-na-na ever again, but it kind of works in this song. I believe it's only on this release, nowhere else. We get a welcome rap where Neil welcomes the people. We get this silly little fun, funky blues song called Doghouse. We get dog barking sounds. I think the backing vocals are like Doghouse or like some weird like random frat boy chat type thing. Cool progressions throughout the song, though it is kind of a playful, fun number. Fool for Your Love, which I believe was first released on Road Rock, though it was played here first. Road Rock is from early 2000s, I believe. We'll get to that eventually. A really nice, great driving bass and drums. Just kind of a cool blues pop 70s melody in here. It kind of works. I think I remember liking the Fool for Your Love version better, but I have not listened to that album in years. So when we get to that, we'll see if I was right. We get an encore rap. Then we get just the encores are fantastic. We get On the Way Home, full band with horns, great piano action. This is a song I've been hearing a lot of because I've been doing older like acoustic stuff when he's just doing this song acoustic. And it is just such a great melody, such a great song, just such a great testament to Neil's power with melodies that he can take a song like this and do it solo acoustic, and then he can do it with this big band. And both of them are absolutely just like impeccable must-hear listens. What a absolutely fascinating artist. But On the Way Home, absolutely fantastic song. Sunny Inside, my favorite song off this, Notes for You. I have this as like Huey Lewis's Power of Love meets Midnight Hour, meets a little bit of Soul Man in there. All those things, just with this really dun, 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 this great horn section. The horn arrangement on this is fantastic. And then we close out with a 20-minute Tonight's the Night. It's pretty much tonight's the night, jam, get loud, bring it down, jam, get loud, bring it down, go back into the vocals, get loud, bring it down. When we finally reach the end, let's just make noise for a couple minutes and then go back into the song and then make noise for another couple minutes. Completely indulgent, completely repetitive, completely unnecessarily long, but a joy to listen to for every second and an absolutely fascinating way to end this 2 hours of Neil doing the blues. You get rid of the 20-minute Tonight's the Night, this thing is still over 2 hours long. So might as well throw in a 20-minute Tonight's the Night. Fascinating. Listen. My favorite of his live stuff? Nah. Is it bad? Nah. Should Neil have done it more? Nah. Good tour. Let's do it once. Get it out of our system. This is much better than the album. The studio album should have been these songs in their live versions, and maybe don't put the ones on there that you didn't include on here, which I think was maybe one, right? Almost everything else is on here. But throw on this Notes for You version. This live version so much better. 10 Men Working, Life in the City, Married Man. Yeah, so many of them are on here. Twilight, one. Yeah, they're all on here almost. But yeah, that's what it should have been. It should have been these live tracks because this is fantastic stuff. But anyways, I like this. I think it's a good listen. I highly recommend you check it out. Even if you don't like this Notes for You. If you don't like this Notes for You because the genre is not your favorite, skip it. If you don't like this Notes for You because you don't think he does a good job with the genre, approach this with a more open mind because I do think it's more relaxed. It's more celebratory. I think Neil knows more what he's doing. Or maybe he already knew what he was doing, but maybe we don't put this like, oh, you're just dabbling in something, putting on a musical costume. I don't know. It's a good listen. All right. I'm rambling. Thanks for watching. Give me your thoughts on this album. It's a fun listen. That's all I got. Peace. Talk to you later.